Okay, here are the notes for worksheet number 4 on parallelograms. All right, so I'm gonna do 3 videos. Hopefully they're each shorter and just kind of get to the point, and we'll see the 3 different kind of problems. Okay, so this is something similar to what we learned in the beginning of the semester, where you had a segment, right? Where you had a segment like this, right? Whatever. And then you had the midpoint, right? The middle point. Right? So pretty much, let's say this was A and this was B and M was the midpoint, right? Let's just say M. Right? So from here, we can deduce, well, a couple of things. Let's look at 2 different scenarios, because this is the kind of the 2 different scenarios you're going to see. From here, here's the first scenario is, well, again, M is the middle point. Well, that tells us that what does that mean, the middle point? Whatever this measures is, the middle point makes these 2 congruent. This section AM congruent or equal to AB, right? AM, segment AM is congruent, or is going to be the same size, the same measure. You put them equal to what? To BM. Right? And that's a pretty simple concept. So let's say if I have this, and I know this is the midpoint. Here's the first example. And I tell you that this is 5. Let's say for A to M is 5. Well, there's one of 2 things they can ask you. They can ask you to find MB. So this is where you need to pay attention to the problem. They might ask you to find MB, which we know if this is the middle point, then this is congruent to this. Then MB would be what? 5. They might ask you for MB. And if they ask you for MB, well, then you tell them 5. But then they might not ask you for MB. They might ask you for what? Well, MB or BM. I should have wrote BM, huh? Same thing. They might ask you for this one, or they might ask you for the whole thing. Right? So we started with this. We just started with knowing that this one's 5. Just this one here, just this part here. They might ask you for this other part, or they might ask you for the whole thing. What's the whole thing? From A to B would be what? 10, right? That's kind of the scenarios you're going to run into. The second scenario is pretty similar and just as simple as the first one. Again, you're going to have a segment. Let's call it AB, and we know that this is the middle, like the middle point. Pretty much, if this is the middle point, you know that these 2 are congruent, right? These 2 are congruent. But the other way they can kind of turn this around is, what if they tell you the information here for this second scenario is, what if they tell you, instead of telling you this part or this, what if they start with the whole thing? What if they tell you if, let's start with if this whole AB, if this whole segment is, let's go with something like 14. Does that mean this one's 14 and this one's 14? No, they're telling you the whole thing is 14, the whole thing. If the whole thing is 14, what does that tell you for either this one or this one? Well, then it has to be 7 and 7, right? It has to be cut exactly in half. 14 divided by 2, right? So that's, it goes hand in hand. These 2 will be congruent. But sometimes if they know this one, they'll ask you for this one, or they'll ask you for the whole thing. All right, so I included this worksheet in the notes. Oh, you know what? I'm going to backtrack, sorry. There's something I didn't talk about. I haven't talked about parallelograms. Okay, here's what you're gonna, here's the information you need to know about parallelograms. All right, I know we've seen angles and we've seen the sides, but here on worksheet 4, and I'm going to draw kind of an exaggerated parallelogram like this, yes? This is parallel to this. Okay, and then this is parallel to this, right? Oops, sorry about that. Now, what they're going to talk about are these diagonals. See, this diagonal here that I'm going to draw in red is not the same size. They will not be the same size. Will not be the same size as this one that I will draw over here in black. You notice this one's longer. See, this one's longer. On some parallelograms, they look like they're the same size, but they're not. This is longer, the black one here, you can tell it's longer, and this one's, they're not the same length, all right? So if I tell you, or if you know that this is 3 from here to here, then from here to here is also 3. Remember, oh, here's the thing. The diagonals bisect each other. The diagonals, which are, you know, this diagonal line and this other diagonal line, they bisect each other. So what that simply means is this red one splits the black one exactly in half. It bisects it. And at the same time, the black one is also bisecting, or goes right through that midpoint. Remember I talked about a middle point over here? I mean, that's it. The concept is easy. That they bisect each other. And see, now this one over here, this one looks like it's not 3. This one almost looks like it's double, or looks like a 5 or something. It's obviously more than 3. So this, whatever this measures, this one's going to be congruent to it, right? So sometimes you'll see the little congruency symbol here for here and here. But since this is a different length, let's say this is 7, I don't know, it looks more than double. Let's say this is 7. Then this one over here also be 7. Then you'll see a double marking, right? Because it's different. It won't be a single mark because it's a different measure. But this is the main thing. And if that's true, that diagonals bisect each other, all you have to understand is that the black one splits the red one right in half into 2 congruent segments, and the red one is going right through the middle and also splits and bisects this other one. That's it. The math is easy. It's just half, right? Okay, so let's look at the first problems here on this worksheet. If you were able to print it out, which I hope, because that way you don't have to draw it out and stuff. If you don't have a printer and you couldn't draw it out, well, then you can pause it and draw them out and continue the video. Okay, so the first ones are going to be so easy. So here's the worksheet that's there. Okay. And the first 4 problems are going to be these easy ones. Okay, so let's see. Let's look at number 1. Okay, so again, this is where you're going to pause it. If you were not able to print it, pause it here, copy the problem, and then push play. Okay, so here it is. Find the measurement indicated. They're just asking you to find one measurement. They're asking you to find EG. EG is the whole thing from E to G. Okay, so we know what we're looking for. And if it's a parallelogram, we know that this one's going to be congruent to this one, and we're not even dealing with these two, but we know that whatever this one is would be congruent, and those are different. We're not dealing with those, we're just dealing with these here. And what do they tell you? EL is 8.4. E to L is 8.4. So does that mean that the answer is 8.4? Well, they're not asking you for LG. LG would also be what? Or GL would also be 8.4. So you got to watch out what they're asking you for. Sometimes they'll ask you, if they give you this and they ask you for this, okay, that's easy, but they're asking for the whole thing. So EG would be what? EG would be 8.4 plus another 8.4. EG is equal to 8.4 plus another 8.4. That's going to be what? 16.8. Again, be careful because sometimes they will. Sometimes it will be a simple one. They give you this one and they just ask you for this one. Well, if they ask you for this one, it's 8.4. But here they're asking you for the whole thing. Okay? So we're just going to use, like, common sense here. We can use formulas and equations, but we'll save that for the other problems. Just on this first video, for the first like 4 problems right there, will be these simple ones. But don't assume they're not going to be the same. All right, Vx is 14. How about we start with the given information? See, now they're giving you the whole thing. Now they're telling you Vx is 14. Vx, you might use a highlighter or color pencils or pens or something. Vx is the whole thing. The whole thing is 14. If this whole thing is 14, what do you know about these two halves here? Well, they have to be 7 and 7, right? It says right here v to x, from v to x is 14. If that's 14 and this is cut in middle, well, that's 7 and 7. That's it. Find hx. This is too easy. Hx is equal to what? 7. Okay, that's the first video. That's what's happening. That's what we're seeing. Okay, the main thing, diagonals bisect each other. Okay, but you still got to watch out what they're asking you for. Okay, the next other set of problems are not as easy. They are going to take work, so watch the second video and third video. Okay, that's it for the first one.